Morning, everyone. I call to order this regular meeting of Council for Tuesday, December 5th, 2023. In the spirit of truth and reconciliation, I acknowledge that we are gathered in the heart of Treaty 7 territory of southern Alberta. This land is home to the Blackfoot Confederacy, consisting of the Siksika, Kainai, and Pekanai First Nations, also the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and our most adjacent Indigenous neighbors, the Stoney Nakoda, comprised of the Bearspaw, Goodstoney, and Chiniki First Nations. Further, we are located within the Métis Nation of Alberta, District 4. The town of Canmore is committed to working to live in right relations and to advance truth and reconciliation as we acknowledge the many Indigenous peoples whose footsteps have marked these lands for generations. I'm grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. Now looking to the agenda for December 5th to see if there are any changes. Dr. Cottle.
No changes, but a reminder that we'd like to table items G2 through 4 after G1.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Councillor Ma, did you have?
Yeah, just a minor housekeeping typo for the in-camera section, Land Matter 1. I think this should say other negotiations of the town, so we're just missing a letter.
Great, thank you. Of the town. Yes, yeah. Those of us, we just, we work for the town. It's just common vernacular, man.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay. So with that correction and noting that I will be bringing a tabling motion, I move that we adopt the agenda for December 5th, 2023, regular meeting of council as corrected. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Right, now we'll look to the minutes of November 7th. Any changes, errors, omissions? Seeing none, I'll move that we approve the minutes of November 7th, 2023, regular meeting of council as circulated. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And we're on to G1, Three Sisters Village Area Structure Plan and Smith Creek Area Structure Plan revising bylaws. Mr. Dryzik.
All right, thank you, Council. So this is another revising bylaw application under Section 63 of the MGA. You can see the list of recommended readings and leave to go to readings, so very similar to the one we had a short while back regarding the road closure. The original applicant for these two area structure plans has proposed a number of amendments to the adopted versions. I've reviewed these amendments and the proposed amendments to the Three Sisters area structure plans are the same ones that were approved by Council Resolution 98B-2021 in 2021. Well, these area structure plans were still before Council at that time. Those amendments were presented through a staff report by administration as being minor clerical edits. And then likewise, the proposed amendments to the Smith Creek area structure plan did not go to council resolution in the previous proceedings, but they are likewise of a minor clerical and technical nature. There's also a proposed land acknowledgement that does differ from the original version in the area structure plan and the revisions proposed in 2021 because there's been some further evolutions in that area. So in terms of Section 63 of the MGA, this enables changes that don't materially affect the principle or substance of the bylaw to correct clerical, technical, grammatical, or typographical errors, or to bring out more clearly what is considered by the meaning of the bylaw, or to improve the expression of the bylaw. So with respect to the specific amendments, the applicants provided a chart here the report refers to as a cover letter in the body and a chart in the attachments. This is the same document, and this lays out the amendments, and the column on the TSV area structure plan recaps the original council resolutions that were made for these amendments. There's one error in the red line for the Three Sisters Village area structure plan. The amendment that was captured in the original council resolution and in the applicant's chart is correct on page 43 of the TSV area structure plan. The red line version should show the drafter's pointer note there going to the hotel and spa district and to the innovation district. My reading of the red line that's presented is that it only points at the hotel and spa district. It should point at both as captured in the amendment table and the previous resolution. So I'd propose that be rectified before you go to vote on the bylaw itself, because the way the bylaw is structured is that revising bylaw 2023-37 will cause the entire red line with all its changes to be adopted. So if you're inclined to make that change, you should make that change to the red line first by resolution before proceeding to vote on the bylaw. That's it for me.
And I
subject to any
confirm
questions from you.
that you've provided a wording for that motion
Yes.
to me, so I'll bring that up after first reading. Okay? Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And so just to confirm, all of these changes go to provide grammatical corrections or clarifications or editorial updates to make the document actually read better. And they're not substantive changes, they are changes that we're able to make with the revising bylaw provisions in the MGA.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll move the council give first reading to Three Sisters Village Area Structure Plan Revising Bylaw 2023-37. And I will now make an amending motion, as it will appear on the screen momentarily. And the amending motion is that the drafter's note showing change number 1 on page 43 of the red line version of the TSV ASP attached as Schedule A to Bylaw 2023-37 point to both the Hotel and Spa District and the Innovation District to give effect to Council Resolution 98B-2021 sub F. That's a different way of just saying what he said. So I'm looking to see if there are any questions around this amending motion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. So we're back to the main motion. Is there any one that wishes to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I'll now move that council give second reading to Three Sisters Village Area Structure Plan Revising Bylaw 2023-37. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I move that council give leave to go to third reading to the Three Sisters Village Area Structure Plan Revising Bylaw 2023-37. Call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I move the council give third reading to Three Sisters Village Area Structure Plan Revising Bylaw 2023-37. Would anyone like to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I'll now move the council give first reading to Smith Creek Area Structure Plan Revising Bylaw 2023-38. Would anyone like to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I'll move the council give second reading to Smith Creek Area Structure Plan revising bylaw 2023-38. Would anyone like to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I'll move the council give leave to go to third reading to Smith Creek Area Structure Plan revising bylaw 2023-38. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And I move the council give third reading to Smith Creek Area Structure Plan revising bylaw 2023-38. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. I am now going to move that we table items G2, G3, and G4 until after H4. If anybody would like to speak to the motion? The reason we're doing this, of course, is that these decisions rely upon the items that follow, and it's because of the organizational of our traditional template that we will move them to afterwards. I'll call the motion, or call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We will now then move to item H1, the 2023 capital budget amendments and project cancellations. Ms. Rogers, the floor is yours.
Okay, I'll try that. I think from the back of the monitor, this? Sorry, technical difficulties. I think he unplugged this. Apologies.
No problem. Not your fault. Technology sometimes causes us to stop and take a breath.
We've had it fixed already once this morning, sorry.
What's that? What else? This is like a curiosity question. It's probably best, okay, either save it or, since we're sitting. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah. Any,
Yeah, there's no power to the box. I could do it off my laptop. Cheryl, if I use my laptop, will it bypass? Oh, yeah.
yeah, 2, 3, and 4 will follow H4.
Like our souls.
Yeah, but now my that's the $77 million question.
Okay. So we have IT here if you need assistance.
You might have to state like hiding
should be
under
some
the
music.
table or something.
We should have some like IT music. Like the superhero music. Yeah. No.
But it went dead after you left.
Like
Nobody
maybe
presented
the
that.
Rocky theme. Dun 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 dun. Yeah.
No. Let me ask.
So that already got better.
Okay. Then we can use this. Oh, and I can do this in here. Okay, let's, oh no, that's not the right one. There it is.
Yeah, we're working on a replacement here.
Okay. I need a bigger. Yep. Okay. Oh, you know what? I have to do that. Weird thing. Can you see my mouse? Yeah, or it's right under file. It's right under the word file. It looks like the little dots in there. Hallelujah.
Okay, we are ready to go.
Apologies for the technical difficulties.
No problem.
Oh, now I got to watch there too. Today brings us to the last stage of the 2024 budget amendment process. We will start off with capital budget amendments. No changes were made by the Finance Committee for the capital budget, and all the motions from the Finance Committee are being brought forward today for council final approval of that capital plan. So I will just walk through those motions. We're happy to answer questions if there are any, but we're not planning on redoing the presentations from the Finance Committee. So the first stage is that we've got 4 2022-2023 projects that require cancellation, and they are listed on the screen for you. The asset management software needs assessment, the long-range facility needs report, passenger rail station and impact study, and the heliport landing pad surface replacement. Any questions on those?
Okay, no questions?
Oh, here's my pen. Okay. Did you want to do all the motions at the end, or do you want to do them as we go through? It's up to you.
Well, why don't you just deal with the next one, and then I'll do all of the motions at the end after the...
Of that section.
of
Okay,
this section,
perfect. We've got also a couple of amendments for 2022-2023 projects, and we're seeking approval from council to increase the budget for the Elevation Place Rockwall refurbishment. We're looking to increase the budget for the cemetery final design and new columbarium for phase 1, and then also closing out the Quarry Lake jumping platform project.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, so I'll make the motions pertaining to H1 then. I'll move that council cancel the following 2022-2023 projects. A, 7285 Asset Management Software Needs Assessment. B, 7226 Long Range Facility Needs Report. C, 7236 Passenger Rail Station and Impact Study. D, 7311 Heliport Landing Pad Surface Replacement. Speaking to the motion, the only thing I would note is that with regards to the passenger rail station and impact study, that is something that can always be brought back should that project gain approval with the province, but there's no use sitting on our books in purgatory. Any other comments or discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I'll move that council approve the following amendments to the 2022-2023 capital projects. A, increase the budget for 7190 Elevation Place rock wall refurbishment from $100,000 to $285,000, with the additional $185,000 funded by Asset Replacement Rehabilitation Reserve. B, increase the budget for 7244 Cemetery Final Design and New Columbarium Phase 1 from $365,000 to $615,000, with the additional $250,000 funded by General Capital Reserve. And C, close out 7307 Jumping Platform Quarry Lake. And to speak to the motion, I would just advise that anybody that's interested in hearing more about this can look at the Finance Committee streaming as these were discussed and explained in detail there. Would anybody like to speak to the motions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. We'll now move to H2, 2023 Capital Budget Amendment, Water Treatment Plant 2 Replacement and Capacity Upgrade Construction.
I'll come back to that one. So we have an amendment for the water treatment plant, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Como to answer any questions for you.
So is this H2?
It's part of,
I'm looking what's on the
sorry,
screen
I've
there.
confused myself here now. Yes, this is H2. But just give me 1 second. Yes,
I'm sorry?
this is H2. Water treatment plant replacement upgrade. Yeah,
And
that's
that's-
not this slide, sorry.
Not that slide, yeah.
I just can't, the slide is confusing. Maybe turn it on.
Okay.
You have a presentation to give. Yeah. Sorry, we're switching devices.
No problem.
This is, what do you call it, improv?
That's right. Oh,
Aw,
there we go.
Thank you.
Great. Mr. Como, welcome to council.
Yes, I hope you enjoyed those photos of my young daughter. Yes, Mayor Krausert, Council, thank you. I just have a presentation on water treatment plant number 2. There's the recommendation. Essentially, we need to increase the budget from $20 million to $26 million, with the $6 million difference coming from debenture. Just a reminder, this is what the plant looks like. This is where it's going to be. And it's a critical plant that was intended to put in a few years ago. So we had gone out to tender after pre-qualifying 4 bidders. And just a circumstance of the current situation with construction costs, only 3 submitted bids, and the 3 that did submit were all over budget. And so we have worked with the lowest bidder to hold their pricing, do some, look at where there's some potential for reductions, and we feel we've got they're a very qualified bidder, and we'll have a good agreement if we get approval from council for the additional funds to build the plant that the community needs. And so the big changes is around on the debt side. This is a project that is to be funded 50-50 with the development industry. And so you can see there'll be $3 million in addition on the offsite debt and $3 million on the town side on the utility debt. All the other changes or all the other funding are unchanged. So the impact is an extra going from $14 to $20 million in debt to fund the project. That extra $6 million is going to cost the utility roughly $660,000 in additional debenture costs for a total of $2.2 million per year. And on the grant side, the Alberta Municipal Wastewater program, just wanted to just let council know that we did, of course, we did get the grant for $3.7 million, but that was based on values created even last year. And it just shows the change in a 12-month period. And so we have shared those details with the grant administrator with the program and how they're treating it as a separate request. So the 3.7 is unchanged. The addition that we would need, which would bring us close to $8 million if we use the same formula, so really critical that we get that, is treated as a separate ask, and based on the province's grant process that we'll know more details come springtime when they do their budget. So the request is in, they have everything that they need, including all of the nitty-gritty details too. It's really just a wait and see, and of course if we're successful in getting that grant, we'll come back to council and be pleased to be able to change the funding scenario. And that's it. Are there any questions?
Mr. Coma, just to confirm then, with debentures taken on utilities, they are ultimately repaid through our utility rates,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Yes, they're not funded through the property tax side of things, it's through the utility rates.
Correct.
Right, very good. Any other questions with respect to this item? Councillor Hillstad?
Thank you for the presentation. With the extra $6 million debenture, you showed briefly like it's a 50-50 split with the offsite model and the utility debt. So really we're just fronting the cost, and then the offsite model will also pay back a portion of that. Is that how that would work?
Correct, yeah. The town builds it, so they fund it, front the costs from the development side, and then we recoup that with each unit that's added.
Thank you.
Thank you. And once again, Finance Committee also heard about this, and it's just another example of the incredible price escalation that everyone is seeing in the construction sector due to a variety of factors beyond our control. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. I'll move the council approve the revised budget for Water Treatment Plant 2, replacement and capacity upgrade construction capital project number 7322 from $20 million to $26 million, with the increase of $6 million to be funded by debenture. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? So none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move on to item H3, 2024 to 2028 capital budget and plan amendments.
No. Oh, there, I see it. You see it? Oh, my gosh. Thank you. Jesus. Yeah, it's a pain in the ass. No, I lost it. It's somewhere near the left. Oh,
There it is.
Yeah.
This one?
Yep. There we go. Okay.
All right.
Thank you for your patience.
No problem. Ms. Rogers, please proceed.
So moving on to 2024 capital, we've got some amendments, a cancellation, some additions, and then some funding changes that technically apply to existing 23 projects, but have longer-term impact. So we've included them with the 2024. So in terms of, what are we doing? We're going to ask council to approve the capital plan as presented. Again, the Finance Committee did not make any changes to the capital plan that was presented. There was a fair bit of robust discussion, but these are the recommendations brought from Finance Committee to Council. So we'll start off with cancellation of a few 2024 projects. These are deferred into future years, and you'll see in the motions which year we've moved them to. Perhaps the IT improvements should have stayed in 2024, but anyway, here we are. We also have an asset management software implementation that we're moving into 2026. Some recreation system enhancements moving to 25. Looking at a finance system migration needs assessment that we've moved to 25. And then a couple of creek mitigation projects moving to 2026. We'd like to propose that the salt shed rooftop solar installation project be canceled and remain as a future unfunded project, and also the noise abatement study deferred to 2025 but unfunded.
So just on that, so when they're deferred, but we may then further defer them if we don't get funding for it?
Correct.
Great. Okay,
Yeah,
thank
so they would return in next year's budget cycle, and we will either have found funding or not, and then council can make the decision when you'd like to keep them. We do typically have a number of unfunded projects. Sometimes we're waiting for grant funding, and sometimes we haven't found a funding source yet, and so we've prioritized them. They're still important, but we haven't been able to fund them.
Great, thank you.
We do have several new projects that we are proposing be added to 2024. One is an update to the long-term financial strategy. We do have some repairs needed on the Elevation Place water slide. The recreation facility feasibility study, a parking management implementation plan funded from the new Integrated Transportation Management Reserve, wastewater treatment plant upgrade conceptual design, and then a couple of water line items, one on Railway Avenue and one on TP Town, in TP Town. Some amendments to 2024 approved projects. So looking at changing the budget and scope for the complete street improvements from Railway Avenue to Main Street, increasing the budget for street and drainage rehab, increasing the budget for pathway network connectivity, and then a decrease in the budget for the Railway Avenue wastewater upgrade. And those are connected to this next item that I'll talk about, which is the funding for the Cougar Creek long-term mitigation structure. We are requesting a change of funding from the sources you see here. So we had a combination of asset replacement and rehab, general capital reserve, and flood mitigation. And we are asking that they be funded instead from the asset replacement and rehab and MSI grant. And then the final change there is change in budget and scope to the Bow Valley Trail Pathway Improvements South. That's a funding change, again, from MSI and ISIP to reduced $540,000, all from asset replacement and rehab.
Great. Thank you very much. I'd look to council to see if there are any questions. And once again, we dealt with these in greater detail during the Finance Committee. So I will then proceed with the motions in support of this section. I will first move that council approve the 2024 amended capital budget of $21,284,000 and adopt the 2025 to 2028 capital plans as presented. Looking to council to see if there are any comments or discussion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Now move the council cancel the following 2024 approved projects and defer them to future years. A, 7343 IT strategic improvements, $15,000 to 2025. B, 7344 asset management software implementation, $150,000 to 2026. C, 7345 recreation systems enhancements, $10,000 to 2025. D, 7346 finance system mitigation or migration needs assessment, $30,000 to 2025. E, 7352 hazard mitigation, Three Sisters Creek construction, $4,225,000 to 2026. And F, 7353 hazard mitigation, Stone Creek, $500,000 to 2026. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Now move the council cancel the following 2024 unfunded projects and defer them to 2025. A, salt shed, rooftop solar installation, $550,000, and B, noise abatement study, $50,000. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I'll now move the council add the following projects to 2024. A, long-term financial strategy update, $100,000 funded from operating. B, EP water slide area repairs, $200,000 funded from asset replacement and rehabilitation reserve. C, recreation facility feasibility study, $200,000 funded from operating and general capital reserve. D, parking management implementation, $140,000 funded from integrated parking management paid parking reserve. E, wastewater treatment plant upgrade conceptual design, $600,000 funded from wastewater utility reserve. F, Railway Avenue water line replacement construction phase 1 south, $1,800,000 funded from the water utility reserve. And G, TP Town water line upgrade, $440,000 funded from water utility reserve. Would anyone like to speak to that motion? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I'll now move that council amend the following 2024 approved projects. A, change the budget and scope for 7359 Complete Street Improvements Railway to Main from $5 million to $6 million funded from grants, MSI and CCBF, and reserves, asset replacement, rehabilitation reserve, and offsite reserve. B, increase the budget for 7357 street and drainage rehabilitation from $500,000 to $1,650,000 funded from grant, CCBF, and asset replacement rehabilitation reserve. C, increase the budget for 7358 pathway network connectivity from $250,000 to $865,000 funded from operating developer and grants, MSI, ICIP. And D, decrease the budget for 7371 Railway Avenue wastewater upgrade from $2,400,000 to $1,750,000 funded from debenture and wastewater reserve. Would anyone like to speak to this motion? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Now, please note from what was originally provided in our package, there's a addition to this motion number 6. It just goes to show where the funding is moving from instead of just where it's moving to. So I will be reading the revised motion. That council approve, and it's on this screen right there, the council approved the following amendments to the 2023 capital projects budget. Change the funding source for $8,300,000 CAP 1562 Cougar Creek long-term mitigation from 1, $5,300,000 asset replacement rehabilitation reserve, 2, $2 million general capital reserve, and 3, $1 million for the flood Mitigation Structure Maintenance Reserve, and we're changing it to $7,100,000 from the Asset Replacement and Rehabilitation Reserve and $1,200,000 from the MSI grant. And then the B portion of this motion is change the budget and scope for CAP 7299 Bow Valley Trail Pathway Improvement South from $900,000 to $540,000 to be funded by Asset Replacement Rehabilitation Reserve. Would anybody like to speak to this motion? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. We'll now move to item G4. This is the 2024-2026 operating budget and plan amendments. Or H4, so thank you, Councillor Ma. H4.
All right, we are now at the last stage of the 2024 operating budget amendment process. Deliberations with the Finance Committee occurred over 4 meetings. We met on October 31st to review the operating budget and some options that you had asked us to bring back to you. November 2nd was a review of capital and utilities. November 9th focused on the transit requisition, paid parking fees and expansion, and also the paid parking revenue allocation model, otherwise known as the PRAM. And November 14th you spent in deliberations, which concluded with a recommended budget that's brought forward to Council today. Just as an overview, the final recommended operating budget requires $58,100,000 and a bit of change for tax-supported town operations, and $18.9 million for water, sewer, and waste management operations, totaling a budget of just over $77 million for 2024. Administration had brought some recommendations for you for the status quo budget, so just important to reinforce the budget that is before you, or that was brought to Finance Committee, was a status quo budget. But as you saw in some of the capital projects, inflation has had a significant impact on the cost to maintain existing services. And so we started this process with a 5.5% tax increase. Inflation and the impacts it had on COLA and some extraordinary circumstances left us with just under $750,000 net increase to maintain that status quo budget. And as a result, we are bringing you a budget today that has a 7.8% municipal tax increase. As a reminder, 1% tax is equal to $320,000. So there were a number of operating amendments that had an impact on taxes. And again, this is just a review for you. This is what you spent your time reviewing and deliberating, making modifications to during Finance Committee meetings. We had a couple of items to increase revenue in fire, first response, and recreation fees. And then on the expense side, again, this status quo, this is the impact of largely inflation and costs outside of our control that totaled just under $750,000. When the 2024 original budget was prepared, the cost of living was sitting at an estimated 2.6%, and that increased to the 5.5% that we're seeing now. And the net impact on that on this budget is $550,000 to apply cost of living increases to wages. Power and natural gas costs across the organization have continued to rise, impacting our facilities, parks, rinks, street lights. So anywhere that we have power, we've seen increases in those costs. Custodial services and snow and ice removal services are included in this budget amendment, as the existing fire hall is being repurposed for use by municipal enforcement parks and facilities. And we have, as you saw on your tour, those of you that went last week, quite a bit of square footage that needs to be cleaned and snow maintained in the new fire hall. On the IT side, we're seeing some increase in prices for some of the contracted services that we have, as providers are facing the same inflationary challenges as we are in the town. And then based on a revised multi-year financial plan from the RCMP, our policing contract expenses are increasing by a net $200,000, with a slight reduction to the request for body-worn cameras that we've already incorporated into the budget and had presented to you. We think this is a bit of a timing issue. The RCMP contract works on a different fiscal year than the town. We're annual January 1 to December 31, so we're the calendar year, and they have a April 1 to March 31. So there's a slight difference in how those costs are accounted for. Finance Committee was presented with a recommendation to discontinue the feral rabbit management program. The rabbit hemorrhagic disease virus, or RHDV, really has decimated Canmore's feral rabbit population, and so the recommendation to save that $55,000 in 2024 and beyond has been made and could be reevaluated if the situation changes. And finally, the museum has requested just under a $40,000 increase to their requisition to address some recruitment challenges they're facing in trying to find a new director. So I'll pause there and see if there are any questions.
No, go ahead.
Okay. We do have some operating amendments that were made that have offsetting revenues or are funded from reserve, and therefore there's no impact to taxes. And those three are an increase in the transit requisition that's being funded from paid parking revenue. We have added, or will be adding, a senior development planner funding from planning revenue, and that is to deal with the TSMV file. And then Council had directed administration to work with Canmore Community Housing to revisit their requisition, and we are recommending for 2024 that their increased request of $250,000 be funded from the Vital Homes Reserve. That Vital Homes Reserve is projected to have an ending balance at this year end of $2 million, so there's sufficient funds there to fund that requisition increase. And then moving forward, this additional funding for CCH should come from an increase to the Vital Homes tax levy and would be considered as part of the 25-26 budget process. No questions? Okay. Several operating amendments that have offsetting reserve impacts, and again, no tax impact, were also included in this update for you. We are anticipating a net decrease in franchise fees. Fortis has informed the town that although electrical franchise fees are expected to increase, ATCO, on the other hand, is expecting their franchise fees to drop significantly, and so the net impact is this $50,000. There's no tax impact. It simply means that less money will be transferred into those reserves listed. Photo radar is a revenue source that has been declining over years, and that is anticipated to continue in this next budget, 2024 budget, for $200,000. We've seen a request from the BIA to increase business registry. No, that's not right. Hold on. I'm with you. Business registry revenue is expected to continue to rise based on our trends, sorry. And that additional $50,000 would be contributed directly to the Economic Development Reserve. Sorry, there's a lot going on.
And that's based on increased business licensing?
Business licensing, yeah, for sure. And based on 2023 projected revenues, paid parking revenue for 24 is also expected to continue to rise. And this will help offset the increased expenses of the paid parking program, along with an increase in transfer for transit and to the reserve. And that transfer of those additional funds is based on the paid parking revenue allocation model, which Finance Committee reviewed, debated, and approved on November 9th. And then the BIA does have a request for an increased levy, and that's just a flow through for the town. We collect it for them and flow that through to them. Any questions there?
Seeing none, nope.
So we have some amendments on the utility side. I'll just go through them briefly, and if there are any questions, we've got support from our team in the back. So we're looking at an increase in solid waste services rates to address an increase we found in hauling contracted services fees, and transfer also to the Bow Valley Regional Waste Management Commission for our portion of a baler, and then a transfer to reserve, to the Solid Waste Services Reserve. On the water and wastewater utility side, we have an increase of $805,000. Slight increase in utility contracted services, and then the balance going to that reserve to help fund future projects. We'll have a bit more discussion about that later when you approve the utility bylaw rate bylaws. Finance Committee recommended several amendments to the operating budget, and I'll just go through those again, just as a reminder for you. Apologize, the color is actually hard to see, even though I tested it yesterday. But I think I had the lights off, that's the difference. Anyway. The Finance Committee made several amendments which are before you today for approval. The first was to add some safe park revenue to help cover contracted services and supplies expense for $15,000. So we're increasing the fee for participants in that program to help offset the costs. We are also looking at an increase in paid parking fees by a rate increase in the town center of $1 per hour for the peak season, starting in 2024, and then during weekends and holiday periods during the low season, which begins on October 16th. There's also an increase in parking rates at Quarry Lake of $5, an increase of $5 to $10 per hour for the peak season only, and that season begins May 15th. We're looking at expanding the town center zone, including that increase in parking fees to also include Riverside Park and the boat launch area just opposite the Bow River Bridge there. And based on the PRAM, again, that paid parking revenue allocation model, those increases are transferred to the Integrated Transportation Management Reserve for future operating and capital needs. Council added a full-time permanent community evaluator position to the 2024 budget. You'll recall that had been a year-by-year position for a couple of years, so that's been added permanently. Then we made several reductions based on administration's recommendation to some expenses that we were getting actual invoices for, and we're able to determine that our trends were dropping a bit. So we've made those recommendations for you. One on the insurance side, another in some anticipated lower legal fees, and then a little bit in public works to address some reduced lease work required on provincial lands. And we've also, based on your recommendation, canceled the citizen input panel for 2024 for $25,000, and then that work would be taken on by the communications team if their additional position is approved in the 2025 budget. So it's just a deferral of a year for that. Instead of doing it with contracted services, it would be done by staff. And then the Arts and Events Micro Grant Program was deferred to 2025 for a savings of $32,000. Finance Committee is also recommending to Council to support the purchase of a van with a wheelchair lift by Origin at Spring Creek in the amount of $25,000 to be funded from the Alberta Low Income Transit Pass Program, which is a grant that we have received from the province of Alberta. And this is subject to an agreement being entered into with Origin that includes access and service availability requirements for all Canmore residents who do not reside at Origin. There's a cost recovery model and some service fees, some ongoing reporting requirements that Origin has to report back to Council, and then a recognition of the town's contribution as well as consequences for non-fulfillment of the service. So this is a need that's been identified by our community social development team and a creative way to fill that gap. And that's the amendments made by Finance Committee.
And so that 68,000, that was a net decrease to the
Correct.
budget.
Yes.
So that we actually then went to, instead of a 7.8 as recommended, 7.6.
That's right. Yeah, the net impact of all of those ins and outs is just over 68,000.
Great, thank you. Looking to see if there are any questions from council. And once again, we spent days on this in the Finance Committee, and lots of discussion, lots of questions at that time, and anyone who's interested can go and watch the Finance Committee meetings as found on the town website.
Just one final, well, a couple of final slides there. The tax impact now on the median Canmore residential home, which is assessed at $969,000 in last year's assessment, is a $12.58 monthly impact. That's 7.6 and $151 for the year.
Great.
We have an amendment to the master fee schedule as we were finalizing some of our work on City View and our online portal. We determined that we had a rate still in the master fee schedule, which has actually been removed in the recently approved building permit bylaw. So we, with the approval of that bylaw, the 6-month fee was no longer applicable. That came out as part of that bylaw. There is no financial impact to this error because, of course, that fee was taken out, so it was never contemplated in our calculations of rates, but we did want to take the opportunity to just clean that up while we have the master fee schedule in front of you rather than bringing it back at another date. And that brings us to the several motions requiring your approval around the operating budget. Again, happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Looking to see if there are any questions. I see none. Thank you. Okay, I will move that council approve the 2024 operating budget, tax supported and utility supported, of $77 million, or $77,537,000, and the 2025 to 2026 operating plan amendments as presented. And I'll deal with each of these individually. So that motion's on the table. Any discussion? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Next, I'll move the council discontinue funding the Bow River Basin Council. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I move that council approve the, so with this one, I'm just going to seek clarification from the clerk. Should I be first moving that council approve the master fee schedule as presented and then make an amending motion to remove the 6-month renewal, or can I make it all as one? I can make it as one, okay. So I'll move that council approve the master fee schedule as amended by removing the 6-month renewal option in item 11.97. And that's the, what Ms. Rogers spoke to is no longer available. It's the 6-month renewal of a issued building permit. Anyone wishing to speak to that motion? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I move that council approve the paid parking revenue allocation model, PRAM, as presented. Any discussion on that motion? Councillor Graham?
Thank you, Your Worship. I really appreciate the process that we do to approve our budget. As you've seen today, there's not much discussion. All of that discussion happened in most of November, and we've had robust conversations about a lot of topics. One of the topics we discussed was the weekday increase to paid parking up by $1. This was a thorough discussion, and a close vote, one that failed on a motion I presented 4-3. So I would like to present, have council consider that motion once again. And I'm curious as to if, after a little bit of time, any of my colleagues had some time to reconsider whether their position stayed the same or not on this issue. Again, I'm looking to not increase the weekday fee by $1. My arguments are similar. I'm concerned about 2024 economic viability or uncertainties. I get to witness and watch the downtown vibrancy firsthand, and I have noticed, and the stats would agree, that only during July did we hit 75% of capacity. We have a 2-year trend. 2 years is a hard thing to draw a trend line on. So I just take that data cautiously. We discussed this quite robustly, and I look forward to seeing if any of my colleagues have reconsidered. Thank you.
Okay, so just procedurally, I just want to verify that, in fact, the recommended increases to paid parking are reflected in the operating budgets that were just approved, correct? I'm seeing nodding from Dr. Cottle. The motion that's on the table is simply the allocation of funding that is raised through paid parking, whatever it is, at whatever rates. Correct, Dr. Cottle?
Yeah, and procedurally, you can't amend a motion from, I don't believe, from the Finance Committee. What you're wanting to amend is
Yeah.
the PRAM and
Yeah.
then the operating budget. So,
Well, actually, let me get there.
yeah, okay.
What you're actually wanting to amend is the operating budget, because it's based on that. So, the proposed amendment at this point for this item is out of order. So we won't consider the amendment there. We have just approved the operating budget that included the recommendation of the Finance Committee. So I am actually, before I can rule on that, I'm just going to call a 5-minute break, because I need to see what would be involved in that and whether we can proceed with that.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll come back at 10:08. we're back. A motion was on the table with regards to the PRAM model. Just to advise where we are, I stand by the ruling that the proposed amendment by Councillor Graham is out of order for this particular item. What we have determined is that we will continue with the motions as put forward in our agenda package. Then I will leave it open to Councillor Graham if he or anybody else wish to move a motion to reconsider the approval of the operating budget. And I'll speak to that at that time and what will be required then. So we have a motion on the table that council approve the paid parking revenue allocation model, PRAM, as presented. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And now I'll move the council approve the revised reserves policy, FIN 007, as presented. Would anybody like to speak to that motion? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Now, in order to consider an amendment that Councillor Graham has spoken to briefly and would be able to speak to further, if the motion that was already approved on the operating budget is reconsidered. Now, to bring a motion to reconsider, it must be done during the meeting or at a later date, but it has to be brought by somebody who voted in favor. We all voted in favor, so any one of us could bring a motion to reconsider. In order to be successful, a vote to reconsider must be won by 2/3. So there would need to be 5 out of 7 of us that are in support of opening it up in order to hear the amendment that Councillor Graham wishes to speak to. So I will now open up to see if anyone, i.e. Councillor Graham, would like to bring a motion to reconsider. And that motion is on, so it's the top one that's on the screen. So if you would like to, you can make that motion.
Thank you, Worship. I appreciate the grace in which we've handled this kind of last-minute request, and my apologies for not bringing the previous motion at the correct time. I would be humbled if my fellow councillors could reconsider the operating budget as proposed here in the amendment, so that we may have a fulsome discussion on my next proposal.
Okay. Speaking to the motion, I will not be supporting the reconsideration. I believe that the Finance Committee did some really good work and had good discussion. So I don't think that there's a need to reconsider that motion. And the proper time to do so was when this was before us, and rather than deal with things on the floor in advance notice, would have been able to advise of the proper procedure at that time. So I'll be voting against this motion. Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Okay, seeing none, Councillor Mock, go ahead.
Sorry, something that takes me a little time to collect my thoughts. I'd be willing to reconsider. I know the process here is not clean. It's kind of sloppy. And definitely I can sympathize with admin being a little bit scattered, or not the wrong word, just thrown for a loop by this. I think we're all a little bit thrown for a loop, but I would be interested in seeing what comes out into that discussion. But yeah, things do get sloppy, and let's see what comes about. That's my take. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Looking to see if there is anyone else that wishes to speak to the motion to reconsider. Councillor McCallum.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will not be able to support this. I believe actually that the Finance Committee had quite a fulsome discussion on this topic. and that democracy came into play. I appreciate you bringing it forward. Work with administration. They will help you put these places in the right spots. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak to the motion to reconsider? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of reconsidering the motion? All those opposed? The motion is defeated with Councillors McCallum, Hillstead, and Mayor Krausert opposed. So it's, you get the idea. You'll be able to write that up in the write that up in the minutes. The minority won. That's basically what happened. Which is different. Which is different than, yeah. Exactly.
No, what,
Yeah, because it requires a two-thirds majority. It was not obtained. Okay, so in that case, there will not be an amendment, or the motion as previously approved unanimously stands, and there will not be any further consideration of that matter at this time. Now, that said, I would like to just, in order to deal with this fully, there has been a motion of council to approve a budget. There may be that it hasn't been a specific motion on what you were putting forth, and so we would need to decide whether the 6-month rule comes into effect. If it was something you were really wanting to push forward with a notice of motion, that is something that could come at a future council meeting with the proper motion, and then we could consider that at that time. We would just need to get a decision or some advice on whether or not approving the operating budget, which included an increase, means dealing with it. All right, so that's something to consider. Otherwise, if that's not the case, this is something that you could bring forward after a 6-month period if it was something you were wanting to pursue further. So something to think about going forward. All right, so we've just finished item H4. As per the tabling motion, we're now going to return to item G2. Before doing that, I recognize we only had what was a 5-minute break, and now we're approaching the 1 hour and a half mark. So in fact, I think what we're going to do is we're going to take an actual break right now. We're going to take 15 minutes, and we will return at 10:38 and deal with these items G2, 3, 4, and the rest of H. Thank you. Okay, we're back. We'll now proceed with item G2, 2024 Recyclables and Waste Disposal Rate Bylaw Amendment, 2023-35. Mr. Robbins, how are you?
Doing well. Good morning, Mayor and
Welcome.
Council. Yeah, so I'm here for a rate amendment for recyclables and waste. So our recommendation is to give first, second, and third reading on this amendment. And what the amendment is we're looking for new rates to be approved for the waste collections section of our utility. So we're looking for it to be increased to $22.74 per month, which is roughly a 10% increase of the previously approved 2024 rates. The factors, what this will look like is a $1.98 increase per month per account, which would be a $23.76 increase per year per account. And what's driving this is, guess what, inflation. There's an unexpected rate increase from our waste hauler, which is the town of Banff. So they, in August, gave us notification that there would be a 23% increase, which it will be a $110,000 increase to our 2024 operating budget. And that's due to inflation of wages, fuel, and vehicles and maintenance. The other piece is the repayment of our bailer to the Bow Valley Waste Management Commission. So there was a clerical error they didn't start invoicing us until 2016, and so our last payment will be in 2024, where it was put in earlier in budgets. So just a change there. It's really just those two things. It's that simple. So the recommendation is for first, second, and third reading.
Great. Ms. Robbins. Looking to council to see if there are any questions. Councillor Maw.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Mr. Robbins, for your presentation. So could you remind me where we're shipping, where Banff is shipping waste on our behalf to currently?
Yeah, so currently we're taking it to the West Dried Meat Lake landfill.
Dried Meat Lake.
Exactly, up by Camrose.
Okay, and there's a hope that the new location we're delivering to is potentially somewhere closer, or?
Yeah, so when we had the notification of rate increase, we did go out getting 2 quotes from other haulers.
Mm-hmm.
Banff ended up being the most economical hauler, but with the rate increase, we did see that with the rate increase of the hauling a shorter distance to Calgary would actually be economically viable. It is a similar price, so we made that request to the town of Banff. I think they have about a month for our request to give us a proposal for hauling to Calgary.
Okay.
Exactly, which would be a shorter haul, and they also have methane capture at the Calgary landfills.
Yeah, so the shorter haul would be like beneficial from GHG as well. So
Actually, the methane capture is actually the significant part.
the significant. Okay, great. Thank you.
It's like 6 times higher.
Yeah, exactly. We get a reduction in GHGs by about 60%.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks for that.
Great. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. All right, I will move the council give first reading to the Recyclables and Waste Disposal Rate Bylaw Amendment 2023-35. Anybody like to speak to this motion? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Move the council give second reading to Recyclables and Waste Disposable Rate Bylaw Amendment 2023-35. Anyone wishing to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I will now ask the council give leave for third reading of Recyclables and Waste Disposable Rate Bylaw Amendment 2023-35. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And I'll move the council give third reading to the Recyclables and Waste Disposable Rate Bylaw Amendment 2023-35. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And we'll now move to item G3, 2024 utility bylaw amendments rates. Mr. Como.
Hello again. So this, pretty similar to what was shared with the Finance Committee back in November, except for, oh, this is, yeah, sorry about that. With what was shared with the Finance Committee back in November, so we had talked about the, actually, to be honest, it was quite a turbulent year for the utility, in lots of new information, lots of new requirements, and of course going out for the new water treatment plant project. And so with the new utility master plan, and then doing a capacity evaluation of a wastewater treatment plant to build out, plus our new approval to operate, and because of the new approval to operate, doing a tech review to determine what would need to be done to get us to meet those new conditions. And of course, was already shared with council this morning was the outcome of our tender process for the new water treatment plant. So quite a bit of an impact on the utilities, and of course we run it through our model, and with those changes and the additional debt that we talked about this morning, plus all the changes in the capital plan because of those studies, as you can see here, and again, similar information to what we shared with the Finance Committee. And then the longer term, the deep utility upgrades costing the utility about $53 million in 2023 dollars over the next till 2041. And then with reservoir work and then the wastewater treatment plant estimated around the $75 million mark. There's a lot, and of course there'll be an impact in the rates, and we would, even though we have an approved rate for 2024, we need to change that. So what I have here is what we had shared, what we have currently, which was 5.5% in 2024, and then 5% outwards. With the Finance Committee, we had indicated with everything but the water treatment plant that we needed to be at a 12%, go from 5.5% to 12% in 2024 and 8% for the subsequent years out to 2028. With the addition of the extra $6 million in debt, or another almost $660,000 in financing, we don't believe 2024 needs to change from what was shared with Finance Committee at 12%. But following years need to go from 8 to 10%. So the 2% helps us make sure that we cover the increased debt servicing costs, and in year 5 be above the balance target in the reserve at $8 million. The impact on the rates, so you can see what we're currently approved for 2024, and going from 5.5% to 12% in 2024 rates, averages about a 6.5% addition to what was there before. So the overall impact to the ratepayer is just shy of 11%, or $68 and change in 2024, and it's similar for the commercial accounts as well across the board. And then you can see those are the reserve balance in a snapshot, the targets in red, and the big impacts that are with us right now with the water treatment plant, and then the wastewater treatment plant coming online, and then of course all the deep utility work that is currently sitting out at the end of, but will be moving up as engineering services continues to do their work with resurfacing. And that's the end of my presentation. There are the recommendations for council, so please let me know if you have any questions.
Great, thank you. Looking to council to see if there are any questions. Seeing none, thank you very much. Okay, so we will be dealing with the, first the water bylaw amendment. So I will move the council give first reading to water bylaw amendment 2023-39. Would anybody like to speak to that motion? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I'll now move the council give second reading to Water Bylaw Amendment 2023-39. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I'll now ask the council give leave for third reading to Water Bylaw Amendment 2023-39. Call the motion. Ask the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I'll now move the council give third reading to Water Bylaw Amendment 2023-39. Would anybody like to speak to that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I'll move that council give first reading to Sewer Bylaw Amendment 2023-40. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I'll move that council give second reading to Sewer Bylaw Amendment 2023-40. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I move that council give leave for third reading to Sewer Bylaw Amendment 2023-40. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Move the council give third reading to Sewer Bylaw Amendment 2023-40. Would anyone like to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. We'll now move to item G4, 2024 Borrowing Bylaws. Ms. Biswas, welcome to council.
Good morning.
Morning.
So last year, council, go back to the slide. Sorry. So last year, council had approved the 2023 and 24 capital projects borrowing bylaws. But based on today's 2023 budget amendments, as well as 24 budget approval, we have some projects, those borrowing bylaws need to be either approved, amended, or canceled. So these debenture borrowing bylaws must be approved before the start of the projects, and therefore we're doing the first reading today. The first one is a new borrowing bylaw for the wastewater treatment plant odor control construction. The project budget approved was $2 million, of which $1.6 million needs to be debt financed. Next up are two amending borrowing bylaws. First one you just heard about the water treatment plant 2 replacement and capacity upgrade construction. With a budget change of $6 million increase, the borrowing bylaw needs to increase by $6 million. So for a total of $20,132,830. Similarly, you saw the change of budget reduction of Railway Avenue wastewater upgrade, which needs a reduction of borrowing amount. So project budget has been decreased by $1.5 million, and therefore the bylaw requires an amendment to borrow $875,000. And the last one was approved last year, but this project has now been canceled, Bow Valley Trail Wastewater Upgrade Phase 3. Therefore, the request is to repeal this bylaw due to the cancellation of the project. I added a bit of a slide to show the existing debt limit and how much room we have for borrowing. The black line shows the internal debt limit at 70%, while the red line is the MGA limit. So we are well below those two lines. And here is the timelines for the borrowing. Today is the first reading. It'll be advertised for 2 consecutive weeks on December 7th and December 14th. And we will be back at the council table for the second and third readings on the January 9th, once these are advertised and a petition period is complete. With that, the recommendation is to give first reading to the bylaws as listed on the slide here. Borrowing Bylaw 2023-41, Borrowing Bylaw Amendment 2023-42, Borrowing Bylaw Amendment 2023-43, and Borrowing Bylaw Repeal 2023-44. That's
Thank you
all she
very
wrote.
much. Looking to councils to see if there are any questions. Seeing none, thank you very much. I will then move that council give first reading to Borrowing Bylaw 2023-41, wastewater treatment plant odor control construction. Anybody like to speak to this motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I'll now move the council give first reading to Borrowing Bylaw Amendment 2023-42, Water Treatment Plant 2, Replacement and Capacity Upgrade Construction, Borrowing Increase. Anybody like to speak to this motion? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I'll now move the council give first reading to Borrowing Bylaw Amendment 2023-43, Railway Avenue Wastewater Upgrade Borrowing Decrease. Anybody like to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And I'll move the council give first reading to Borrowing Bylaw Repeal 2023-44, Bow Valley Trail Wastewater Upgrade Phase 3. Would anyone like to speak to this motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Now we will move on with item H5, and that's the development permit at 1800 8th Avenue, second floor building addition at Canmore Collegiate High School. Mr. Gravel, welcome to council.
Thank you. I won't be asking for any money today, no rate hikes. Slide it in there. It's a couple million. All right.
All right, thank you.
Good morning, Your Worship, members of council. As mentioned, PL 2023-0239 is a development permit for a second floor addition at the Canmore Collegiate High School. Bit of site context for council. The site is located at 1800 8th Avenue. The second floor addition, as you can see on the slide there, is to the rear portion of the building, just adjacent to the playground area. The expansion is to provide a new classroom and a multi-purpose space. Slide here shows the appearance of the building. What's existing is on the top, and what is proposed is on the bottom image of the slide. A couple of summary remarks. The site is located in the Canmore Collegiate School DC District. Council is the development authority for primarily all development except for accessory development. The application is for permitted use with no variances. A notice of application was posted on the site for 10 days. No feedback was received. Administration recommends approval of PL 2023-0239. It's permitted use and it complies with the town's land use bylaw and the engineering design and construction guidelines. Concludes my presentation. Happy to take any questions you may have.
Great, thank you, Mr. Gravel. I don't have any questions. Looking to council to see if there are any questions. I don't see any. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
I'll then move that council approve PL 202-30239, subject to the conditions of approval set out in the Schedule A. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And now I'll move to item H6. I don't think that presentation's needed, right? Because it's just some names, right? Okay, so I'm going to move that council appoint Nora Bonsteel as the Town of Canmore Library Board representative to the Marigold Library Board for a term ending at the 2026 annual organizational meeting, and Doreen Saunderson as the alternate for the term ending at the October 2025 annual organizational meeting. Looking to see if there are any discussion on the motion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Okay, the only items left on the agenda are the in-camera items. Now, just so everybody's aware of what we'll be following here is we're going to deal with each of them separately, because the first matter may require a motion, depending on what we hear in camera. So we're going to go in camera on K1, then we'll come out and make a motion if that is in fact something that we want to pursue. And then we'll go back in camera for K2, and after that one, we'll just be coming out. There won't be any decision to be made. We'll just be coming out and ending the meeting. So we'll actually stop the streaming after we come out and deal with K1. So that's how we'll proceed going forward. So then, that being the case, I will move that council, this is item K1, that council take the meeting in camera to prevent disclosure of information that could reasonably be expected to interfere with contractual or other negotiation of the town in accordance with section 25, sub 1, sub C, sub 3. Call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. We are now in camera and looking for this We're on? Okay, so we are back. Following our in-camera item K1, I will be moving that council approve a new capital project, town land acquisition, in the amount of $1.5 million, funded through the General Capital Reserve to further short and long-term housing goals. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I will now move that we go in, or as I mentioned before, we're going to be going in camera now. And we will not be coming out to make any motions. We'll just come out to adjourn. So we will stop streaming after we go into camera here. So I will move that council take the meeting in camera to prevent disclosure of personal information in accordance with Section 17, Sub 4, Sub F of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. This is with respect to item K2. Call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously.